"We want a peaceful Thanksgiving with your sister's family," my parents texted. I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed one word back: enjoy. They had no idea. No idea that while they planned their quiet dinner, I was finalizing menus, itineraries, and room assignments for 23 relatives flying to France. My name is Carrie. I'm 34, a partner at a law firm, and apparently still the unwanted daughter. 8 months ago, I bought a villa overlooking the Mediterranean. They never asked where my partnership bonus went. They never cared to know. Now I was hosting the Thanksgiving they'd always denied me, filled with laughter, family, and love they'd forgotten existed. Their version of peace meant excluding me. Mine meant freedom. They wanted peace. I was about to give them peace, my way. Growing up, I learned to take up less space. Helpful, quiet, dependable, and endlessly low maintenance. Emma, my younger sister, sparkled in every room. I was the switch on the wall, useful, invisible, uncelebrated. When she brought home a B+, we had ice cream. When I brought home straight A's, Dad changed the channel. Her graduation had a DJ, catering, 100 loud congratulations. Mine ended early because Emma had a can't-miss date. She chose a private university. Tuition appeared like magic. I juggled 3 jobs and dawn classes at state school. When I got into law school, Mom said, "Be practical." She never asked how much it cost to get there. During my engagement, they offered $2,000 in relief. Emma's wedding became a $75,000 production. Designer dress, destination parties, a country club reception, pattern fixed. Her emergencies mattered. My needs inconvenienced. Even making partner didn't rewrite my role in their script. I called, hands shaking with disbelief and pride. "Oh, that's nice, honey," Mom said, chopping fruit for twins. At dinner, they debated naps and snack schedules. My partnership papers stayed in my bag, ignored and heavy. I smiled, paid the bill, and drove home numb. It wasn't jealousy. Jealousy assumes a fair game. It was grief, the quiet kind you feel at your own funeral. I practiced sentences in mirrors no one would hear. I tried to be undeniable and became invisible instead. Every polite nod erased my name from the family tree. Every empty congratulations closed another soft door. So I stopped calling first, stopped volunteering, stopped rescuing conversation. I worked, invested, learned, failed quietly, rebuilt even quieter. I became someone useful to forget, dependable to overlook. I wanted recognition without begging, love without auditions. That day, I stopped asking to be seen and planned. I stopped needing their approval. I started building something they couldn't ignore. After that dinner, I didn't collapse. I did what I always did, worked. The long hours became armor, and the money became quiet permission to leave. I didn't know it yet, but every invoice was a ticket out. Months passed in quiet routine. No calls from my parents, no guilt texts from Emma. Silence, for once, felt merciful. Then came the conference in Nice. The firm sent me to speak on international contracts. It should have been ordinary. But France has a way of holding up a mirror. On my last free afternoon, I rented a small car and drove along the coast. Somewhere between fatigue and freedom, I saw it. A villa behind wrought iron gates, half hidden by olive trees. Cream-colored stone. Blue shutters faded by sun and time. The sea just beyond, glittering like it knew secrets I didn't. A for sale sign leaned against the fence. I almost laughed. Then I stopped. I called the number. The caretaker arrived 10 minutes later. He opened the gate, smiling softly. "This house needs someone who understands patience," he said. Inside, sunlight moved like water across marble floors. Rooms wide enough for breath, every corner a small forgiveness. I walked the terrace in silence. Waves stitched blue lines along the horizon. It wasn't luxury. It was peace disguised as stone. I ran numbers on my phone under a fig tree. Partnership bonus. Investments. Years of saving because no one else ever would. For once, the math said yes without apology. That night, the paperwork arrived. I signed with the same pen. I'd once used to bill every unseen hour. After the courier left, I poured a glass of wine, sat on the cold tile floor, and listened. The house creaked like it was exhaling too. Outside, wind brushed through lavender and sea air. For the first time in years, I slept without clenching my jaw. In the morning, sunlight reached across my bed, like someone saying, "You're safe now." And maybe I was. I furnished slowly. Linen that wrinkled like laughter. Wood that held warmth. Copper pans that gleamed like new beginnings. Then came the invitations. Not to my parents. To the ones who showed up. Aunt Marie, who taught me to bake at 12. Uncle James, who drove 4 hours to my graduation. Cousins who remembered birthdays, who called just to ask how are you. Their replies came fast. Tickets booked, messages full of excitement. A new kind of holiday was forming, one built on choice, not obligation. They'd excluded me from their plans. I was finally building my own tradition. Thanksgiving morning arrived like sunlight on glass. Soft, bright, but sharp if you stared too long. The villa was already alive. Children chasing each other through the garden. Aunt Marie arranging flowers on the long table. Chef Antoine humming in the kitchen, his hands dusted with flour and confidence. The smell of roasted turkey floated through the hallways, blending with lavender and sea air. For once, I wasn't bracing for anything, just breathing. Then my phone buzzed. Mom. I hesitated, watching the screen blink with her name. Part of me still wanted her to say, "We're proud of you." The other part already knew better. I answered. "Carrie, honey, are you alone today?" she asked, her voice soft, almost performative. "Emma wanted me to check in. We didn't want you feeling left out." I stepped onto the balcony. Below me, the family laughed around the pool. Someone popped champagne. The sound echoed like applause. "Actually," I said, "I'm hosting Thanksgiving lunch." A pause. "You're hosting?" "Yes, here in France. The French Riviera, to be specific." The silence that followed was ocean deep. When she spoke again, her voice cracked. "You bought a villa? 8 months ago. And who's with you?" I looked down at the terrace. Uncle James telling stories. Cousins setting plates. Children running barefoot under the olive trees. "Everyone," I said. "Everyone except you, Dad, and Emma." The line went so quiet. I could hear the sea breathing. "But they always come to our house," Mom whispered, as if trying to rewrite reality. "Things change," I said. "Sometimes people prefer to be where they're wanted." "That's not fair, Carrie. We just wanted a peaceful holiday." I almost smiled. "You got it, Mom. Peace and quiet. Just like you wanted." She exhaled. That shaky sound between confusion and regret. "Your father, he didn't mean—" "I know." And for once I did. They hadn't meant harm. They just hadn't meant me. "Enjoy your meal," I said, glancing at Chef Antoine carving the turkey. "I should go. My guests are waiting." "Guests?" she repeated, lost. "Yes," I said softly. "Family." I ended the call. For a moment, I just stood there, phone still warm in my hand. The silence after her voice felt heavier than any argument. It was the kind of silence that ends a chapter. Below, laughter carried through the open doors. The scent of thyme and butter drifted up from the kitchen. The sea glittered with cruel honesty, beautiful, endless, and indifferent. And somehow I loved it for that. They wanted a quiet Thanksgiving. They got one. Without me. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the terrace. The sea was calm, pretending it hadn't witnessed the night before. My phone buzzed non-stop. Notifications, messages, tags. Aunt Marie had posted an album titled A Thanksgiving to Remember. Cousins shared photos of the long table. The children's laughter frozen in golden light. The villa looked like a magazine spread. And just like that, the story began to travel. Mom's friends commented first. "What a beautiful place. Did Catherine take those photos?" Then the neighbors. Then the country club. By noon, the silence from my parents wasn't peace. It was damage control. Emma called before lunch. "Why didn't you tell me?" she snapped. Her voice was tight, brittle. "Mom's crying, Dad's furious. Everyone's asking why you didn't invite them." I poured coffee, watching the sunlight dance on the cup. "Why would I?" I said. "You never invite me." "That's different," she hissed. "This is embarrassing, Carrie. Mom's friends think we're estranged." "We are," I said, calm as the sea behind me. She started to protest, but her voice cracked on the word family. "Mom just wanted peace," I added. "And now she has it." Emma was quiet. I heard a child cry in the background. One of her twins, the sound raw and real. "Mom's devastated," she said finally. "She says you humiliated her." "I didn't humiliate her," I said softly. "I just hosted dinner." A pause, then a whisper. "She said she didn't think you'd actually go through with it." I smiled. That's always been her mistake. When the call ended, I just stood there, watching the horizon. How many times had I been left out? Told maybe next year while setting the table alone? This time my silence was the loudest answer. That night, my father called. "Princess," he said, voice cautious, too soft for comfort. "Your mother's upset. Maybe we can talk about Christmas." For a second, I almost laughed. The word we had never included me before. "I already have plans," I said. "Carrie, please, your mother's hurting." I looked out at the sea, waves turning black under the moonlight. "She'll recover," I said quietly. We all do. He sighed, defeated. Your mother just wants the family together again. So do I said. I just stopped begging to be invited. Silence. Then the line clicked dead. I stood there a while longer. The villa lights glowing behind me. The sea endless ahead. For once, I didn't need their blessing. I had my own table, and everyone wanted a seat. The following week, the villa grew quiet again. Suitcases rolled down the gravel path. Hugs lingered longer than words. When the last car disappeared beyond the olive trees, I stood on the terrace, listening to the waves replace the laughter. The house didn't feel empty. It felt complete, like it had finally exhaled too. I walked through the dining room, the table still scattered with wine glasses and crumbs. Traces of joy, evidence of belonging. For years, I thought peace came from being accepted, from finally being chosen. But it turns out peace isn't an invitation. It's a decision. I stopped chasing the family I was born into and started building the one I deserved. Since that Thanksgiving, messages keep coming. Cousins planning New Year's, Aunt Marie asking about Easter, Uncle James sending recipes from the chef. It's funny. For so long I was the forgotten one. Now I'm the gathering point. Mom still texts sometimes, small messages. Tentative. She doesn't apologize. But her silence feels less like punishment now, more like reflection. Sometimes I draft replies I never send. Things like, "It's okay, Mom," or "You did your best." But every time I stop. Because forgiveness doesn't always need witnesses. Some peace is private. Some healing happens in quiet rooms, with no audience but the sea. I don't hate them. I just stopped shrinking for them. And when people ask about that Thanksgiving, I tell them the truth. That it wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. Because sometimes the best way to heal is to stop knocking on closed doors and build your own house by the sea. At sunrise, the horizon turns gold and endless. And for the first time in my life, so do I. They wanted peace. So did I. I just found mine somewhere else. If you've ever had to build peace on your own, you're not alone. Tell me in the comments, what does peace look like to you? Before saying goodbye, if this story touched your heart, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Don't forget to subscribe for more true family betrayal stories that reminds us we are stronger than we think.
My name is Cheryl Whitaker, and for most of my adult life, I believed I was doing the right thing, the thing good daughters are supposed to do. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't loud. But when something broke, I fixed it. When a bill went unpaid, I covered it. When my parents, Gerald and Linda, started falling behind on their mortgage, I stepped in without them having to ask. It wasn't heroic. It was just habit. You see a hole in the roof, you patch it. You see your parents slipping, you hold them up. That's how I lived. Quiet, steady, and always available. Every Saturday morning, I'd stop by their house, check the thermostat, refill their prescriptions online, sort the mail handle, whatever crisis had cropped up that week. I sent grocery money through Venmo like clockwork. Paid for Mom's dental work when their insurance fell through. Spent 2 hours on the phone with the bank once to stop foreclosure. No thank you ever followed. No praise was needed. I told myself this is what love looks like when it grows up. I never asked for recognition. I never expected applause. That wasn't the point. I had a good job, my own apartment, no children to care for. I was the responsible one. The one who kept it all from falling apart. My younger sister, Tiffany Whitaker, lived differently. She drifted from one apartment to the next, one temp job to the next, with a trail of canceled plans and unpaid loans behind her. She once used our parents' car to chase a man she met on Instagram across state lines. Another time, she took my credit card and vanished for 2 months. When she resurfaced, no one asked questions, least of all Mom and Dad. They called her spontaneous. She's just figuring herself out. Meanwhile, I was expected to keep the lights on literally. I never minded not out loud anyway. I figured that's how families worked. Some people bring the spark, some bring the safety net. And I had always been the net. Still, there were moments, quiet, flickering thoughts I'd quickly suppress when I wondered if they even noticed how much I did. When I'd restock the fridge and no one remembered it was me. When Tiffany would breeze in on a Sunday post a selfie with Mom and leave me cleaning the dishes, I'd brush it off. It doesn't mean they love me less, just differently. Besides, I had other things to think about. I'd been saving to open my own flower shop one day, maybe move to Seattle like I always dreamed. But somehow, each time I got close, some medical bill or emergency plumbing issue pulled me back in. That dream sat quietly in a folder somewhere the way I used to believe love should be low maintenance and visible, no need for credit. And then, one Saturday morning, while I was doing what I always did, sorting through paperwork for Dad, I found something I wasn't meant to see. Something that would shake every quiet assumption I'd made about this family and about my place in it. It started like any other Saturday. Dad had finally admitted that the paperwork in the back room was getting out of hand. Bills, insurance forms, letters from the HOA, all piled up in a plastic tub with cracked handles. He asked if I could help sort and scan them. Of course I could. I brewed a cup of coffee, grabbed my laptop, and sat at the dining room table while Dad watched the news with the volume too low, just how he liked it. I flipped through manila folders and envelopes, some unopened, some already yellowing. Electric bills from 2 years ago. A warranty for a dishwasher that hadn't worked since Tiffany's birthday party. Then I saw it tucked near the bottom of the stack. A navy blue folder labeled in my mother's handwriting, Estate Plan, Last Will. I paused. My first instinct was to set it aside. I wasn't snooping. I was helping, not spying. But something stopped me. A flicker of unease, the kind that doesn't shout, it hums. I opened it. The document was thick, neatly printed with bookmarks and signatures. I scanned the first few lines. Legal language boilerplate stuff. But then there it was. The distribution section. The house. The savings. The car. The life insurance. All of it to Tiffany Whitaker. I kept reading, eyes blurring, stomach knotting. My name appeared once. We leave our love and gratitude to both our daughters. That was it. Love and gratitude. For Tiffany, a house and $57,000 in savings. For me, well wishes and a sentiment. The heater I paid to replace hers. The house I kept out of foreclosure hers. The life insurance I helped them secure after Dad's scare last year. Also hers. The woman who used my credit card without asking who once crashed Dad's car and blamed the brakes was now the sole inheritor of everything I had quietly sustained. I sat still for a moment, trying to breathe through it. My hands were shaking. The paper in front of me rustled, but the sound felt far away. It was absurd, objectively absurd, and yet familiar. Like a truth I'd known for years, but never allowed to take shape. Had they forgotten? Or worse, had they always known and simply decided I didn't need to be included? I thought of the week I spent on the phone with their bank, pushing through paperwork to stall a foreclosure. The weekend I canceled my trip to Portland because Tiffany had decided she really needed to do a last-minute yoga retreat and couldn't watch Mom post-surgery. The nights I drove across town after work because the Wi-Fi was down and Dad needed help filing taxes. They must have remembered. They had to remember. The folder sat open in front of me like a wound. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there blinking at the truth spelled out in polite legalese. A few minutes later, Dad wandered into the kitchen, scratching his neck. "You still scanning those papers?" he asked, grabbing a water from the fridge. I turned to him, holding the will gently like it might shatter. "Did you mean for me to see this?" He froze. Just for a second. Then came the sigh. That long, familiar sigh I'd heard my whole life. The one he used when I asked why Tiffany got the bigger bedroom, when I asked why I had to babysit again, when I asked why nobody showed up to my college graduation dinner. He looked at me, not guilty, not apologetic, and said, "You know how your mother thinks? You're fine. You've got your life together. No explanation. No remorse. Just an old tune on a worn-out record." I closed the folder, set it on the table, and stood up. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam a door. But something inside me, something long strained and stretched, finally quietly snapped. I didn't say anything else that day. Not to Dad. Not to Mom, who was still upstairs folding laundry, unaware, or maybe entirely aware of what I had just discovered. I left the will exactly where I found it. Neat. Untouched. Like none of it had happened. But in my chest, something small and stubborn began to harden. I drove home in silence. No radio. Just the ticking of the turn signal, the rhythm of a steering wheel I gripped too tight. When I parked outside my apartment, I didn't go inside right away. I sat there, keys in hand, looking at nothing. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the house. I could survive without those things. I had been surviving just fine without them. What cut deepest was what the will confirmed: I had never been chosen. Not for the bedroom, not for the spotlight, not for the legacy. And now I understood that maybe I had never even been seen. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched the ceiling turn from black to gray and then pale morning. I made coffee and poured it down the drain. Everything tasted like metal. I kept telling myself there had to be more. Maybe Dad had panicked. Maybe Mom had made changes without thinking. Maybe Tiffany didn't even know. But those were hopes, not facts. What I had in front of me was ink on legal paper, and a father who looked me in the eye and said I didn't need anything because I already had my life together. As if competence canceled out love. As if responsibility disqualified you from being remembered. As if being the strong one meant you didn't count. I tried to shake it off, tried to return to routine, but something in me had shifted. When I got texts from Mom about grocery lists or internet outages, I left them unread. When Dad sent a meme I didn't understand, I didn't respond with a polite ha-ha. And when Tiffany posted a photo of herself and my parents with the caption "family dinner" finally all together, I stared at it for a long time. I wasn't there. I wasn't invited. And no one had noticed. If I didn't matter in death, had I ever truly mattered in life, I stopped going over on Saturdays. No warning, no long explanation. I just didn't show up. No grocery money, no check-ins, no thermostat tweaks or prescription refills. Nothing. At first, I thought they'd notice, that I'd wake up Sunday to a missed call or maybe a simple text. Everything okay, but nothing came. Not that day or the next or the week after. A part of me clung to the idea that they were waiting me out, assuming I'd come around like always, that I'd brush this under the rug like I'd brushed so many other things: Mom's favoritism, Dad's deflections, Tiffany's chaos. But as the silence stretched on, another possibility crept in. Maybe they didn't notice because they had never really seen what I did. Maybe I was just a set of hands to them. A walking wrench, a dependable bank account, easy to forget when not in use. The first message came 2 weeks later. From Mom. "Hi, sweetheart. The heater's acting up again. Could you take a look before next weekend? Thanks." That was it. No mention of the will. No acknowledgement of the silence. Just an expectation I'd show up with tools and a smile like always. I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed back, "Sorry. You'll need to call someone else." She didn't reply. An hour later, Dad texted, "Don't be dramatic. We just didn't think you needed anything from the will. You've got your life together." That one made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. As if being competent disqualified me from being loved. As if stability meant I had no needs, no worth. I didn't reply. Then, of course, Tiffany chimed in. "Hey, sis. Mom says you're acting weird. Can you chill out? This isn't a big deal." I blinked at the message. My jaw tightened. She was about to inherit the house I'd paid half the mortgage on for 5 years, and she thought this wasn't a big deal, I typed. "Then pay the mortgage." She replied with a laughing emoji. "Then, girl, I can't afford that. That's your thing." That was the moment it all clicked. They never expected me to inherit anything because in their eyes I already had what I was supposed to have. Not gratitude, not a seat at the table, just the responsibility to keep it all standing. I turned off my phone, sat in the quiet, and let that sink in. I was never the favorite. I was never even equal. I was just the one they leaned on so often for so long that they forgot I was even a person. That night, I made a decision. No more payments, no more favors, no more fixing the broken things in their house or their lives. Let them call a contractor. Let them call Tiffany. Let's see how far that inheritance gets them when I'm no longer the one holding up the roof. 3 days after I stopped responding, the guilt campaign began. It started small, subtle even. A voicemail from Mom, cheerful on the surface, carefully worded. "Hi, honey. We're a little behind on the electric bill, not asking for anything, just thought you should know. Love you." Right, not asking, just informing. The way a cashier informs you your card didn't go through expecting you to fix it without being told. I deleted the message without listening twice. Then Dad called. I ignored that too. No voicemail this time. Just a missed call left there like a warning, a silent tap on the shoulder. Next came Tiffany, predictably bolder. "They're worried sick, Cheryl. You know Mom's blood pressure gets high when she's stressed. Can you please just talk to them and stop being selfish?" There it was. The word. Selfish. Sharp as ever. Familiar. I stared at it for a full minute, thumbs hovering over the screen. So, I was selfish now. Was it selfish when I used my savings to cover Dad's hospital bills? Was it selfish when I canceled my trip to New York so Tiffany could have her bachelorette weekend? Or when I missed 3 days of work to care for Mom after her knee surgery while Tiffany was at Coachella? I typed all of it, every example, every fact. Then I erased the message before hitting send. Not because it wasn't true, but because I finally understood it wouldn't matter. Tiffany wouldn't see it. My parents wouldn't hear it. They weren't interested in what I'd done, only what I hadn't done lately. And lately I hadn't fixed the heater. I hadn't sent the usual Venmo. I hadn't reminded them when the property taxes were due. To them, I was slipping. And when the family mule stops walking, the people riding it get angry. But here's what they didn't seem to grasp, what they never had. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. They made their choice when they signed that will. The last chance they had to say, "We see you, you matter." And they used it to write me out. Instead, they gave everything to Tiffany, the one who never stayed longer than a weekend. The one who posted gym selfies while I hauled furniture and negotiated insurance claims. And somehow, in the fine print, they still said, "We love you both equally." I wasn't selfish. I was tired. And finally, I was awake. A week passed with no texts, no calls, no passive-aggressive Venmo requests. For a moment, I let myself believe they'd finally gotten the message. They hadn't. It was Saturday morning. I was still in pajamas halfway through a mug of reheated coffee when my building's front desk called. "Hi, Miss Whitaker. There are 2 people downstairs saying they're your parents. They're asking to come up." I nearly dropped the phone. "What?" I asked, my pulse spiking. "They said it's urgent," the receptionist continued. "They look determined." I closed my eyes, took a breath that felt like swallowing gravel. "Please don't let them up," I said, flat and calm. "Tell them I'm not available." "Will do," he replied, but hesitated. They're being pretty insistent. Of course they were. 10 minutes later, the first text came. "Mom, we're downstairs. Open the door." 5 minutes after that, "Dad, we just want to talk. Be reasonable." And then, right on cue, "Tiffany, seriously, Cheryl, you're making Mom wait in the cold like this. What is wrong with you? What was wrong with me?" Nothing. What was wrong was them showing up uninvited, believing they could fix months, no years of erasure with a surprise appearance in the lobby. This wasn't a tantrum, it was closure, but apparently they needed to hear it face to face. I threw on a sweatshirt, grabbed my keys, and took the elevator down. There they were. Linda in her pearl earrings hair set, clutching her coat like it was a prop. Gerald stood beside her, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Tiffany leaned against the wall, arms folded, looking like a smug little prosecutor. I opened the lobby door just wide enough to stand in it. Mom stepped forward, her voice already trembling. "Sweetheart, we just need 5 minutes. That's all." "No," I said, even and steady. "You need money." "That's all." Her face dropped. Like I'd slapped her. "That's not fair," she whispered. "Neither is leaving your daughter out of your will," I said. "Let's call it even." Dad's jaw tightened. "We didn't come here to argue." "No, I said you came here to make me feel guilty enough to pay your bills again." I looked at Tiffany. "But I'm not doing that anymore. Ask your heir." Tiffany scoffed. "Don't drag me into this." "You're already in it," I snapped. "You got the house, you got the savings, you got the promise of everything. So why am I still the one expected to clean up the mess?" No one answered, because there was no answer. Just 3 people suddenly forced to stand in the space I used to fill and not liking the view. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You raised me to believe family was about love. Turns out it was about leverage. And now that you have nothing left to hold over me, you're panicking." Mom's lip trembled. Dad looked away. Tiffany muttered under her breath, "You're being dramatic." I smiled. "No, I'm being done." And with that, I closed the door. No yelling, no scene, no bargaining. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. They didn't stop at my doorstep. By Monday morning, the campaign had gone public. It started with a vague post on Mom's Facebook page, a 10-year-old photo of the four of us on a family hike I had planned and paid for. The caption read, "Sometimes the child you love most is the one who forgets you first. Prayers appreciated." The comments rolled in like clockwork. "You were such good parents. Some children just forget where they came from." We raised ours right. Thank God. By lunch, Dad had added his own version of events. Raised a daughter with everything she needed. Thought she'd care for us in our later years. Instead, she turned her back when we needed her most. And just to twist the knife, he tagged me. Tiffany followed up with a filtered photo of her and Mom on the porch swing. Mom turned slightly, eyes glistening. The caption read, "She doesn't deserve this." None of them do. But I'll keep showing up even when others don't. That's what family means. No names, no direct accusations. But everyone knew who the bad daughter was. I hadn't posted screenshots. I hadn't aired their secrets. I had stayed silent, but they hadn't. They wanted sympathy. They wanted control. Most of all, they wanted to own the story. So I wrote one post, just one. Not dramatic, not emotional, just the truth. For 5 years, I supported my parents financially while my sister contributed nothing. I paid their mortgage, their groceries, their repairs. I never asked for recognition. Then I found out accidentally that I'd been written out of their will. Everything was going to my sister. No conversation. No explanation. They made their choice. Now I've made mine. To stop being used. To stop paying for love I never truly received. If that makes me selfish in their eyes, so be it. I hit post. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt peace. Not because the war was over, but because I had finally stopped hiding. Maybe you've been the strong one too. The fixer. The quiet provider. The one who held the whole thing together without ever asking for credit. If this story sounded a little too familiar, you're not alone. Sometimes we tell the truth not to be heard, but just to stop being invisible. You don't have to explain your story. But if you've ever walked away quietly just to save yourself, leave a single word. Or just a dot. That's enough for those of us who've been there to know. You were too. The roast chicken had gone cold, but no one seemed to notice. My mother, Linda Monroe, was smiling her practiced smile as she poured wine into mismatched glasses, like the whole thing was spontaneous. My father, Richard, carved the meat with his usual precision, each slice laid out like he was on stage. My cousin Jessica laughed too loud at something Uncle Tom said. Brianna, my younger sister, giggled in response, twirling her hair around her finger like she was still 16. No one looked at me. That had become normal. I hadn't planned to sit. My plate was still empty, the seat beside it untouched. I'd arrived on time, but I stayed standing at the edge of the dining room just far enough not to cast a shadow over their warmth. I wasn't hungry anyway. Then it came. "We were thinking," my father said between bites, "maybe Brianna could stay with you for a while, just until she finds her footing." A few people chuckled. Jessica actually clapped. "She's already been there a few days," my mother added, sipping from her glass like she wasn't saying anything at all. Might as well make it official. She winked as if she'd just said something clever. I looked across the table, not at them, but at the space where I used to sit, where my place used to be. I could feel it tightening in my chest. Every unanswered message, every skipped moment, every time they asked me to be patient, to understand, to be the bigger person, while Brianna got the excuses and the benefit of the doubt. I was supposed to carry the family's weight quietly. Again. I ran my fingers across the back of the chair, not hers mine, and tapped once on the wood. "Funny thing," I said, keeping my voice low, letting it stretch across their noise. "I haven't even lived there for 6 weeks." Laughter froze in mid-air. A fork slipped from someone's hand and clattered against a plate. My mother blinked, setting her glass down. "Wait. What?" she asked. I looked at her. Really looked not like a daughter. Looks at her mother, but like a stranger trying to understand how they ended up in the wrong house. She tilted her head slightly. "Where have you been staying?" I smiled just enough. "Not wide. Just enough to say I'm done playing the role you wrote for me." 6 weeks earlier, my apartment still felt like mine. Neutral walls, dim lighting. Quiet, not because it was empty, but because it had taken years to make it so. I'd built that silence, fought for it, paid for it with ramen dinners and 4 a.m. coding contracts. Then came the knock. It was almost midnight. I opened the door to find Brianna Mascara smeared breath-hitching arms full of 3 chaotic-looking bags and a 4th flung over her shoulder like she was arriving for a weekend getaway. "Zach cheated on me," she said without a hello. "Can you believe it I didn't answer?" "I just need a few days," she added quickly. "Just to breathe." Of course I let her in. That's what I'd always done. I was the older sister, the reliable one, the one who didn't let people sleep in their cars or cry alone in the dark. By day 2, she'd moved into my bedroom, without asking. She called the sheets sad beige and replaced them with pink floral ones. Her curling iron was on the bathroom counter, her phone charger plugged into my nightstand. I was on the couch, arms folded, laptop balanced on my knees, pretending I didn't feel displaced. Then came the voices. Friends I didn't know. Laughter that echoed too long in the hallway. Wine glasses left out. High heels abandoned by the front door like some kind of signal this space is no longer yours. By the end of week 1, she threw a party. It was the Friday I had a Zoom pitch one that could have secured me a senior lead role on an AI project I'd been quietly chasing for half a year. I had rehearsed my lines, polished my screen, double-checked every visual. I asked her just once, "Please keep it quiet until noon." She promised. Instead, I logged into Cardi B, blasting from the kitchen, and someone yelling body shots behind me. My screen froze on the worst frame imaginable, me with my face in my hands. The call dropped. When I got back online, it was over. No contract, no follow-up. That night, I pulled Brianna aside. Calmly. Measured. "Brianna, this isn't working. I need you to find somewhere else." She didn't look up from her phone. "God, you're always so dramatic," she muttered. I stared at her. "You cost me a $20,000 contract." She rolled her eyes. Well, maybe they didn't want someone who can't even control her own apartment. And right there, I saw it. Not just who she was, but what she thought of me. I didn't yell. I didn't slam doors. I didn't even curse when I packed my laptop into its sleeve and stared at the blinking cursor of an empty inbox. No contract, no apology. Just quiet failure. Brianna had already moved on. That night, I found her painting her toenails in my bedroom. Her feet were propped on my pillows. I stepped back into the hallway and closed the door. Then I called my parents. My father, Richard, answered on the second ring. "She's going through a lot right now, Catherine. Breakups are messy. She's costing me my career," I said. "She's hosting parties in my apartment, selling my privacy for group selfies." He sighed. "You know how she is." I tried my mother, Linda, next. Her voice was light, like she already knew what I was calling about. "She's your sister," she said gently, like that explained everything. "She just needs time. You've always been so good at managing things." That was the end of it. No one asked what I needed. No one asked if I was okay. The air in the apartment felt thinner after that. I stood by the kitchen window for a long time. Outside, the street was still. A man walked his dog. A bus hummed past. Somewhere in the hallway, someone laughed. Not Brianna, someone else. The world was moving. Mine had stopped. I packed a single bag, laptop, wallet, charger, a sweater. I left the key on the counter next to an empty wine glass I hadn't used. I didn't write a note. I didn't say goodbye. The door closed behind me without a sound. Alex, a college friend who owed me nothing but offered everything, had a couch and no judgment. That was enough. I told him it'd be a few days. I didn't count. And the days passed. 1, then 3, then 10, then 3 weeks. Not a single text. Not a single missed call. Not even a passive-aggressive emoji from my mother. Just silence. It didn't sting. Not in the way I expected. It didn't feel like exile. It felt like proof evidence of something I'd always suspected but never wanted to believe. They didn't notice I was gone, not because I wasn't loved necessarily, but because I had always been the one who didn't need checking on, the one who handled things, the one who made space for other people's messes and quietly swept around the edges. And maybe after so many years of being the strong one, I'd disappeared right in front of them, and they'd taught themselves not to see it. Alex didn't ask questions. That's what I appreciated most. He had a small studio in Capitol Hill, just enough space for 2 coffee mugs and a couch that creaked when I turned. But it was quiet. And no one slammed doors. No one asked me to make room for them. I told him I was between things. He nodded and offered a spare pillow. I expected to feel guilty, to miss something. But the guilt never came. The only thing I missed was peace, and now I had it. 3 weeks in, I started counting backwards. No texts, no calls, no "where are you" from my mother, no check-in from Richard even though he had access to my calendar for holidays. Not even Brianna living in my apartment bothered to ask why I hadn't come home. Silence like that doesn't hurt when you've already heard its echo for years. It confirms what's been humming beneath everything. I was the invisible daughter, the footnote, the background. Brianna was the storm. I was the shelter no one thanked. She'd been caught shoplifting in high school. My father blamed the store. I got straight A's in calculus. He told me to push harder. I had no debt by 24, paid for school with double shifts, learned Python before it became popular. And no one came to my graduation. They missed that too. Everything I'd built had come without applause. And maybe I had accepted that mistaking absence of praise for strength, mistaking silence for pride. But 6 weeks without a single message, that wasn't strength. That was erasure. One Thursday afternoon, I went back. Just once. I didn't knock. The key was still on my ring. Brianna wasn't home. Her pink sneakers were by the door. A trail of glittered makeup bags and shopping receipts led through the hallway. Her perfume hung in the air, sweet, too sweet. It smelled like lies. I walked through slowly like I was touring a crime scene that had once been my life. My clothes were gone. My guitar was gone. My office desk moved into the hallway. In its place, a ring light, a tripod, and a cheap backdrop that read "Breeze Place" in cursive vinyl letters. My grandmother's watch gone. The living room was hers now, not borrowed, owned. Before I left, I placed a small motion-detecting camera behind the bookshelf. It would trigger only on movement or voice. Silent and visible, like I'd been. Then I locked the door behind me. For the last time. 3 days later, I downloaded the first batch of footage. It was worse than I expected. Brianna didn't just treat the apartment like a crash pad. She treated it like a brand. My bookshelf had been rearranged into a backdrop. My coffee table was now a prop. My walls were filled with LED lights and filters that turned everything pink and artificial. She threw parties, laughed on camera, filmed sponsored skincare videos using my mirror. But that wasn't the worst of it. She started selling things. I watched her lift my guitar mahogany, something I'd bought after my first freelance bonus, and pose with it like it was hers. Then she boxed it up. I heard her say into her phone, "Yeah, it's basically new. He barely used it. I'll throw in the stand." She smiled as the buyer handed her cash. Next came the gaming monitor I'd saved for 6 months to buy. My noise-canceling headphones, my Bluetooth speaker. My grandmother's watch wasn't on the footage, but I saw her rifling through my drawer, lifting something small, then slipping it into her purse without looking back. Then came the envelope. A neighbor had complained to the HOA about her parties. She forged a response under my name. Same slant in the R, same curl in the E. She copied my handwriting with practiced ease, signing off like it meant nothing. It took everything in me not to slam the laptop shut. Instead, I time-stamped each clip, saved them into a shared drive, wrote a simple, calm email to Mr. Jenkins, my landlord. I attached the footage, listed the missing items, and stated the truth. My apartment had been unlawfully occupied for 6 weeks. I hadn't been living there. I had not given permission. I had not signed anything. I didn't hear back right away. But a week later, I received the reply. Brianna had been notified. She was to vacate immediately. No negotiation, no appeal. That night, my phone lit up like a storm. Her name, then my mother's, then my father's. Missed call, voicemail, text. I didn't answer. I didn't open a single message. I just blocked them all. Every number, every email, every handle. Gone. No more reaching in. No more demands wrapped in concern. The only voice they'd hear from me now would be the one backed by facts, by footage, by legal boundaries, and by silence, because silence, when it's intentional, becomes power. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to explain. They had finally noticed my absence, but only because something they assumed was theirs had been taken away. No one spoke after I said it. I haven't even lived there for 6 weeks. The words just hung there suspended above the chicken and half-full wine glasses like smoke after a small explosion. Brianna's fork hovered mid-air, a piece of asparagus trembling on the edge. My mother Linda blinked first. Wait. What? I didn't rush. I let the question settle. I've been gone, I said, for 6 weeks. I moved out the night she threw that party. The one with the body shots and the broken lamp. My father Richard set down his knife. That's not Catherine, no one knew. That's the point, I said. No one noticed. Brianna laughed under her breath, then quickly stopped when she saw my eyes. I reached into my coat pocket and placed a sealed envelope onto the tablecloth. The sound it made was soft, but somehow louder than anything else in the room. What's that? My mother asked. Evidence, I said. Footage, screenshots, copies of the complaint she signed with my name, a full list of the items she sold. Brianna's face went flat. You were spying on me. No, I said without raising my voice. I was protecting what I built. Uncle Tom glanced from me to the envelope, unsure whether to laugh or look away. You got her kicked out, my mother said, her voice tight. I looked at her. I sent it to my landlord. He handled it. She was never on the lease. You could have told us, Richard said. You could have warned her. You all made decisions about my home without me, I said. She was already living there before you asked, and not one of you noticed I wasn't. My cousin Jessica furrowed her brow. Wait, you weren't living there? I turned to Brianna. You moved in, trashed the place, threw parties, sold my things. You forged my name, and none of you even thought to check if I was okay. Brianna's voice cracked. You're making a scene. No, I said. I'm making a boundary. I stood slowly, not with drama, but with purpose. This dinner wasn't about seeing me. It was about cleaning up the mess you didn't want to admit was real. My mother started to rise. Catherine, please. But I was already walking to the door. Behind me, chairs creaked, utensils clinked against china, and the room once full of small laughter folded into something brittle. Before I stepped out, I paused at the threshold. This family only checks in when they need something. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I was gone for 6 weeks, and all anyone ever asked me tonight was if Brianna could stay longer. Then I left them there, choking on the silence they had taught me to live in. Brianna was evicted 2 days after the dinner. Mr. Jenkins didn't care how many tears she faked or how many times she tried to claim she'd been helping with rent. The footage spoke louder than anything she could say. So did the complaint with my handwriting on it. She didn't go quietly. The texts came first, blocks of rage, all caps, sentence after sentence that read, more like screaming than writing. You ruined my life, you're petty, you've always been jealous. I didn't respond. Then came the voicemails, some tearful, some threatening, most incoherent. She said she'd tell everyone the truth about me. She never said what that truth was. I still didn't flinch. Instead, I filed a police report for the missing items, my monitor, the guitar, the watch. I submitted the footage and copies of receipts. I forwarded it all to my renter's insurance, and they opened a claim within 48 hours. Brianna's full legal name was now attached to an active investigation. I didn't do it to destroy her. I did it to draw the line. She had crossed it too many times. This was the only language anyone seemed willing to listen to. The ripple effect came fast. Someone maybe from the landlord's office tipped off the boutique where she worked part-time. 2 days later, she was let go. Her Instagram, once all brunch filters and girl boss captions, went dark. Comments disappeared. The curated version of herself cracked under the weight of what she'd actually done. Then came the voicemail from my mother. Her voice was low tired. "She's your sister Catherine. You've always been the strong one. Can't you just fix this quietly?" I didn't reply. I sent her a screenshot instead, one from Brianna's group chat the week she moved in. "He's such a loser. Doesn't even know I basically own his apartment now. Whatever. He'll probably thank me for giving it some life." Underneath, I wrote one line. "This is who you protected." She never responded. For the first time, my silence didn't mean I was afraid. It meant I was done. It was Richard who called. His voice cracked around the edges. I hadn't heard it in weeks. "Your mother's not doing well," he said. "You should come home." I didn't ask questions. I booked a flight. Not because I missed them, not because I wanted closure, but because I needed to see her once more before I shut that door for good. When I stepped into the house, nothing had changed. The same floral wallpaper, the same chipped paint on the hallway trim, the same dusty photos of Brianna on every shelf. And Brianna was there, sitting on the couch eating chips watching reality TV like she hadn't stolen a year of my life. Like we were still just sisters, like nothing had happened. She looked up and smiled. "Hey, stranger." I didn't answer. I looked down the hallway. The bedroom door was ajar. I could see a sliver of my mother's figure beneath the blanket. Her body looked smaller, pale, fading. Brianna laughed nervously. "Aren't you going to come say hi?" I stepped back. "No," I said, quiet, steady. I already said everything I needed to. Her smile fell. "You're still holding a grudge," she scoffed. "Grow up, Catherine." I turned to Richard. He hadn't said a word since I arrived. "Tell her I said goodbye," I said. Then paused. For real this time. And I walked out. No slamming doors, no speeches. Just the sound of my footsteps leaving the place where I had waited too long to be seen. Because closure isn't a conversation. Sometimes it's just a closed door. The letter wasn't angry. It wasn't sharp. It was measured. Folded quietly with the same hands that had once reached out for their approval and never found it. I didn't include a return address. It began simply, "Dear Mom and Dad." For years, I begged for respect quietly. I let my voice drown beneath Brianna's chaos, beneath your excuses. You only saw me when I was useful. You told me to be the bigger person so often I started believing being small was my purpose. You chose noise over peace, applause for the storm while ignoring the shelter. When she lied, you defended. When I broke, you told me to hold it together. But now I choose myself. I'm not bitter. I'm done. This isn't punishment, it's preservation. I'm building a life where my worth doesn't have to scream to be seen. Catherine. No signature flourish, just truth. I didn't leave to be missed. I left so they'd stop pretending I was ever really there. Some of us learn too late that silence isn't kindness, it's permission. That being the strong one only means they think you'll never walk away. But I did. And now the only seat I fill is mine. If you've ever been the one they forgot to notice, if your absence spoke louder than your cries ever did, you don't need to explain it all. Just leave a dot, a single one, to say I was here. I saw this. I understand.